Are Prince Harry and Meghan Markle going to be the biggest thorn in King Charles III's side? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we're going to be kind of unpacking Charles's Sussex problem. Yes, Harry and Meghan are kind of the biggest problem spot in the monarchy right now. And in terms of actually securing Charles's reign, they are his biggest problem. He needs to deal with them in an effective manner. So I will give him maybe perhaps a couple of suggestions, but really we're going to be unpacking kind of why Harry and Meghan remain such a huge problem to the monarchy and why Charles really needs to address them and really kind of sever the ties the best he can, because at this point all we know is that the Sussexes are probably going to drag down his reign with kind of their latest antics. But if you guys haven't been here before, hello, my name is Brittany, and on this channel we talk about everything related to royals. So that's news, gossip, fashion, jewelry, television shows, movies, and history. We do it all right here. So if you want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And obviously, today was a huge day. Charles met with the Privy Council and he kind of signed his declaration officially becoming king. Obviously, he was king as soon as his mother died, but this was more of an official event. The Queen's cousins were in attendance. All the prime ministers were in attendance. So this was a very big deal. And this is actually the first one that's ever been televised. So I guess there was some debate whether or not to televise the one Elizabeth did in 1952, 70 years ago. But they've decided to go ahead and let the public in on this, which I think is a good thing. And so he signed the declaration. He again made a few words. So go ahead and listen to a bit of his speech here.
To all of us as a family, as to this kingdom and the wider family of nations of which it is a part, my mother gave an example of lifelong love and of selfless service. My mother's reign was unequaled in its duration, its dedication, and its devotion. Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life.
So far, Charles has done, I think, an exemplary job of, embracing the duties of king. Obviously, he's still mourning his mother, but there's a lot to do. And there's, he's meeting with ministers today. He's meeting with government officials because it's his government now. It used to be Her Majesty's government. Now it's His Majesty's government. And so there's just a ton for Charles to do in this situation. And then you also have Prince William, who's now the newly named Prince of Wales. And there was actually a very sweet moment of William kind of, trying to steady Camilla as she went up some stairs with their father, because it was William, Camilla, and Charles who were there signing at the Privy Council chambers, signing these documents. And I thought it was just very sweet, and again shows how, despite what happened between Charles and Diana and Camilla, William has really been able, I think, to embrace her in his father's life. She's not his mother. She's not, somebody probably who he relies on a ton, but he does respect her. And he does respect that she is the woman his father loves. And I think that is kind of a beautiful thing because, tragedies happen, marital strife happens, but I think there's true growth sometimes when you can seek forgiveness and kind of try to move on. I think that's, develops in a better family dynamic, which we've seen between Charles and William and Camilla and Catherine, that they have this fantastic dynamic, I think. I think they are close. I think Catherine and Camilla are pretty close. And although, obviously William would love if his mother was still here, he'd probably give anything for that. He'd probably give up being king if his mother was still here. But, that's not the cards that he was dealt. And I think, again, William has dealt with this, I think, in an incredibly mature way, and I deeply admire him for it. However, where was Harry in this situation? Because Harry is not up with the rest of his family at Balmoral, and he's not following around his father and brother as they do these very important things. If the Queen's cousins were in the Privy Council chamber, shouldn't Harry have been there as well? And if he's not there, then why isn't he in Balmoral? It just doesn't make a ton of sense. But again, it highlights this huge Sussex problem that the monarchy currently has, and that Charles has to figure out how to deal with in a way that both protects the monarchy, protects his reign, and yet also gives Harry an opportunity to come back if the whole thing with Meghan falls apart, which I've always thought it probably would. I've only ever given their marriage 5 years because they really don't have anything in common. And honestly, anymore, we're starting to see a lot of I think, controlling behavior, and you could even argue somewhat perhaps abusive, that a man who's just lost his grandmother is separated from his entire family and can only apparently agree with his wife, who only spent, a handful of days with her, probably at the most. I mean, that should raise a lot of questions. But again, let's go back to this Sussex problem. Harry and Meghan are loose cannons. You just don't know what they're going to do. And I think in the lead up to Her Majesty's death, Meghan has made abundantly clear that she is the problem. That interview with The Cut, I mean, it was actually kind of biting towards her. She looked honestly sometimes kind of crazy, comparing herself to Nelson Mandela. Everybody got very upset about that, going, why are you comparing yourself to Nelson Mandela? And not to mention the fact that the story she told about Mandela, nobody can corroborate. She said it was a South African person who was part of the cast. Of course, there's only one South African member who was a part of the cast, and he was not at the premiere. There was a crew member, so this was the composer who's South African, who was at the premiere. He doesn't really remember his conversation with Meghan, which goes to show that it was really unremarkable in a way, and that they only really talked about how Harry and Meghan were going to Africa soon, and he didn't tell her this story. I think if you had this story you really wanted to tell Meghan, that her and Harry's marriage resulted in celebrations in the street and everything, I think you would remember that, because obviously that was the story you wanted to tell her. And if you look at this as well, you have her podcast, Archetypes, or Archetypes. I think they should have said Archetypes, because then you tie in the Archwell, but again, she's not this great at this. But if you look at that as well, she's throwing the royal family under the bus. Oh, I had to go on engagements even though there was smoke in my child's room, even though they only said it was a heater, her child wasn't there, and apparently they had to move houses. She called it a housing unit, even though it was, a mansion in South Africa. Not to mention the fact that, as a royal, you are acting as a diplomat. So, ergo, you shouldn't blab things like this that go wrong. That's just not appropriate. And it's not a way to build relationships. I mean, basically, she's been told, kind of by people on social media and everything, don't ever come back to South Africa. Nobody wants her there. And so she keeps ticking off country by country, and she has this title of the Duchess of Sussex. And the problem is that she continues to use it, even though her and Harry said they want to make it on their own. They continue to abuse these royal titles, and she's making political statements. She is going to the site of like massacres, like the Uvalde thing. And every time she does that, regardless of what she thinks she's doing, that she's just promoting herself, she's dragging the monarchy with her because she's using that title. That's the problem. If her and Harry dropped the titles and just went by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, I think the monarchy would be kind of okay, because it's clear that they're just representing themselves. But every time they use Sussex, which Meghan has spent a couple hours in Sussex at the most, and she still harps on that title, and she still insists on people calling her with the capital T, Duchess of Sussex. It's just deeply, deeply problematic. And this is something Charles needs to address, because unfortunately he's not as popular as his mother was. I think that'll change as he becomes king and people see him more. I think sometimes the problem is, everybody's fascinated by the kind of the young royals. So this in this case, that would be the Waleses, so Catherine and William. It's still, kind of hard to not think of them as the Cambridges. And then you have their children. Their children are going to start taking the spotlight more and more as they get older. George will turn 10 next year, and he's almost, close to becoming a teenager, which is crazy to think. But as he grows, he'll take up more and more of the spotlight. And so Charles, who is an older man, his wife is not necessarily super popular, although I think people are starting to kind of fall in love with Camilla. At least I hope. She has, for all the vitriol aimed at her, she has dealt with it in remarkable grace. And you can't, give her mad props for that. That's not easy. I mean, Meghan couldn't do it. All Meghan's done is complain about her time in the British monarchy. But when it comes to these titles, Charles has to set a firm line. And I think the thing he should do when it comes to these titles is he needs to take them away. They need to, I mean, there's been rumors that there's a bill going through Parliament that would strip Harry and Meghan of their titles of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and I think it needs to happen. Charles needs to secure his reign. He does not need his son dragging him down with his latest antics or his wife's latest antics. And so the best thing to do is just to strip them of it. I would even say going as far as stripping them of the line of succession. I don't know how easy or difficult that would be, but honestly, at this point, you know, if something catastrophic happened to the Waleses, I mean, the UK would be in a republic like that. Nobody wants a King Harry and a Queen Meghan. I mean, a very small percentage of the population does, but at this point, nobody's asking for that. Nobody wants that. So the monarchy really needs to, I think, and Charles needs to be very firm with Harry and Meghan. It's like, this is no longer appropriate. You need to stop, and this is the way we do it. We strip you of your titles. Now, obviously, Meghan can start going by Princess Harry, although her fans are continuing to call her Princess Meghan, which is not appropriate in the slightest. Catherine will be just referred to as Princess Catherine because she is the Princess of Wales. And although she legally just still is Catherine Elizabeth Middleton, she is still, because she can adopt that title of her husband, people don't want to say Catherine the Princess of Wales all the time. They'll just say Princess Catherine. That's just like Princess Diana. That's just something that will happen over time. That's not the case with Meghan. And I think the other reason Charles needs to be very, very firm is that I think Meghan is probably going into an absolute spiral over these events. Because again, I don't think she thought through the ramifications of everything her and Harry did, because he didn't think what would happen, well, when the Queen dies and the guy you've been bashing is now king. She didn't think that through. I think she's going to start becoming more and more desperate. And I think part of that is that she is all of a sudden now really, really relegated to third place among the royal women. So Camilla is no longer Duchess of Cornwall. She is Queen Camilla. Catherine is no longer the Duchess of Cambridge or the Duchess of Cornwall and Cambridge. She is the Princess of Wales, whereas Meghan is just still the Duchess of Sussex. And I can't imagine how that drives Meghan absolutely bonkers. That William and Catherine have all these privileges now. They control the Duchy of Cornwall, and so they control a massive amount of money now and interest that they didn't before. They had to, you know, survive on, you know, relatively small amounts of like, what, 2 million or something. But now they'll have access to something, I think that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And Harry and Meghan are still stuck trying to hustle. And Charles now controls the Duchy of Lancaster, which will provide him with personal money, but he also has to divide that over more people now, instead of just him utilizing that money, kind of like, or him and his direct line like he did when he was the Duke of Cornwall. Now that he's the Duke of Lancaster, he has to kind of spread this money out between, you know, Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, Prince Andrew, Princess Anne, because they will still, at least Princess Anne and Prince Edward will still be working members of the royal family. And Prince Andrew obviously is not, but I don't know how much money he was able to whittle away from all the kind of the wheeling and dealings he did. Maybe he has a ton of money in the bank. I don't know. But Charles now is responsible for his siblings. And so that is a duty that he's inherited now, whereas William can basically spend the money of the Duchy of Cornwall basically only on his family. And Harry and Meghan may have actually been able to, if they were still within the royal family, would maybe perhaps still be receiving their allowance from the Duchy of Cornwall under the direction of William and Catherine. Now they're just completely, the strings are completely cut. And so I think just Meghan is just like, oh my gosh, I am totally no longer that important. And just because of the elevation of everyone, even though her children and her husband went up just one place in line of succession, it's immediately clear how unnecessary they are at the same time. And I think that's going to be really, really hard for her to process, especially because her children no longer had not been given royal titles yet. And I'll mention that a little bit, but I may do a whole video on this and why that's not the case yet. So Meghan is in this huge conundrum where she's not that popular among the British people. The family does not like her. And the king I don't think likes her. So, and the Queen definitely doesn't like her. That's what we talked about found out from the Tom Bower book is that Camilla immediately zeroed in on who Meghan really was and was not impressed in the slightest. So Meghan is just basically, she has no position, she has no status. She can't be, so when Camilla was Duchess, Catherine was Duchess, Meghan was Duchess, Meghan, in her mind, I think, could probably see herself on a level playing field with them because they all shared the same title. Now they don't. And Meghan is very much, she didn't get anything when Charles became king. She's just still hustling and everything. So I think I can imagine that that would drive Meghan absolutely bonkers, especially because, like I said earlier, her children no longer have titles. And I think Charles needs to keep it that way. Do not give them titles. They don't need it. They live in the United States. He's hardly seen them. Like Harry and Meghan have kept their children away from Charles. Why in the world would he give them titles? They don't need it. And Meghan, and I think maybe this will be the angle I go for in the video, it seems clear that some aspects of the media are pushing, going, well, Archie and Lily are Prince Archie and Lilibet. And it's like, no, hold your horses. The thing that Meghan never understood is that the letters of patent, even though they said as soon as Charles becomes king, technically they could inherit the titles of prince and princess. What she didn't think is that the letters of patent are not set in stone. They are malleable. And so it could be entirely the case that Charles says, no, you don't get that. You just don't. I'm sorry. Or it could be that the letters of patent, and this has been my suggestion to the monarchy, are amended to say that only grandchildren living in the UK, going to UK schools, can inherit the title of prince and princess. That would force Harry and Meghan to come back, which I don't think Meghan especially wants to do. I don't think she enjoyed her time in the UK. She is not liked in the UK. So not giving the children the title also takes the oxygen away from Harry and Meghan because, again, they can't manipulate their positions in order to gain attention, in order to try to influence people, in order to try to make money. And I think that's what they would do if their children had prince and princess titles, is they would use it as an opportunity to make money. The other problem that Charles has, and the reason why he probably doesn't want to give the kids titles, is not giving Harry and Meghan any special treatment right now, is because we don't know what's in the Netflix documentary, and we do not know what's in Harry's memoir. And if Harry's memoir is as devastating as we've been led to believe, why in the world would his father give his kids titles? Why in the world is he throwing his father under the bus? Why in the world would the father go, oh yeah, okay, well, we'll just let your kids, who I haven't spent any time with, we'll just give them the titles of prince and princess? Because when they have those titles, again, like Harry and Meghan, they represent the crown even though they're away. They do. Like if you have the title of Princess Eugenie, you do to a certain extent represent the crown. You represent the UK when you have that title. So Harry and Meghan, again, I don't think totally understood that. And it makes sense at this point for the royal family to be incredibly cautious. And I think that's to a certain extent. I've kind of gone backwards and forwards on this because I'm not exactly sure what happened. But when it was announced that Meghan was going to Balmoral, it came out later that about an hour or two later, it was like, oh, no, she's not going. It's just Harry. Because she was told no. She was told no because the royal family does not trust her at all. They don't trust her not to record them. They don't trust her not to be there in private family moments and report what she saw to CBS, to Gayle King, and anybody who will listen. She will report it. So they don't trust her. They can't trust Harry anymore either. That could be part of the reason why he only spent about 12 hours at Balmoral and is not still there grieving with his family. They don't want him there because they don't know if they can trust him or not. However, I will also say it could be that, again, because Meghan perhaps is a bit controlling, that she needs him back. She doesn't want him spending any time with his family in case all of a sudden he wakes up and realizes that she's cost him so much. So he needs to be with her because that's what she demands. So it could be actually both ways. It could be that I think also true that the family does not want her there, and also that, you know, she's controlling. She doesn't want Harry with his family without her, especially. That's the biggest problem, Harry without her, because she knows he's malleable and he's grieving and she wants to control him and wrap him around her more and more. And again, too, Harry's dealing with the fact that he is very much second tier now. He is no longer, he can't have the illusion that he's somehow on the same level as his brother. That illusion is dead. Just like with the other things, that illusion is completely dead. And so he's having to deal with the fact that he's not that important either. And that's going to be troublesome for them. And Charles really also has to deal with the fact that Meghan really still wants to compete against the royal family. So we actually got news that broke that Meghan was supposed to be on Jimmy Kimmel, I think next week or this coming week. And she was going to obviously probably talk about archetypes, and she was going to probably talk about her pseudo tour with Harry, and she was also again probably going to spill the beans about the royal family. Now she can't do that anymore because of the state funeral coming up, but she also can go back on there and talk about all those things about the state funeral and the impact of it and the impact of the Queen. And she also was apparently going to go to the UN again. Her and Harry went there just earlier this year, where we had the huge kind of pawing incident that they did, where Harry tried to disengage from Meghan and Meghan grabbed his arm and pulled him back in, and people just kind of went, whoa, that just doesn't look necessarily super healthy. And we also obviously saw a lot less PDA, I think, in these recent events, or at least a little bit less, and I think that was partly because of the criticism they got from that. But also, again, Meghan wants to compete. So William is supposed to go to New York in September. He's probably now not going to go. And when he does go, perhaps in October, he's going to go as the Prince of Wales. Who cares about Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, when you can have the Prince of Wales, a historic and powerful title, rather than just Meghan's the Duchess of Sussex? So Meghan, I think, again, still wants to compete against the royals, and that's why they really need to cut her and Harry off, because she's going to continue to do this. And as I've said before, because I think she's going to be desperate, because now she no longer has the illusion of playing on an equal playing field with Catherine and Camilla, she's just going to act out more and more and more, because she can't stand the fact that she is now very clearly third fiddle in all this. She is very clearly less important than her stepmother-in-law and her sister-in-law. That is just going to drive her absolutely bonkers. And so she's going to do whatever she can. She's going to start out acting more. She's going to say more outrageous things because she can't help herself, because she wants the attention. But again, I go back to the biggest problem Harry and Meghan throughout this whole process has made is that they did not think what would happen if they trashed Charles, trashed William, and then all of a sudden they're the ones with all the power. They didn't think that through at all. And so they are, I think, going to be desperate, especially Meghan. She's going to act out more and more and more, and she's going to create more and more stories because she is desperate to try to one-up her in-laws. Whereas now, she could kind of think maybe she could level the playing field. Again, the illusion is gone. They are now in power, and she is just who she was in the beginning, her and Harry. They have not gotten any extra privileges. Their children are still just Master Archie and Miss Lilibet. And so I'm sure that there is a lot of, somebody said plate throwing. I couldn't entirely see that. But a lot of tension, a lot of stress going on right now in the Sussex household. And I think Charles, again, needs to separate himself from their toxicity, because I've watched royals very closely for over 10 years. The level of toxicity that Meghan brought into the royal family ratcheted up from maybe 2% to 11%. It changed so much, changed how the public perceived all these different things. And it started with that letter that Harry said that said everybody was racist who didn't like Meghan when they first started dating, which was not true. There was maybe a couple of articles that could maybe have been, I want to say almost they were trying to be funny and it just didn't land, straight out of Compton. That was not the classiest title choice by any means, but perhaps have been, that's kind of a famous song too. And so, if I remember that right. And so it's just, I feel like Harry and Meghan have always blown everything out of proportion. And so this is a time as well for Charles to say, okay, Harry and Meghan are done. We don't need this lead weight dragging us down. And that's what Harry and Meghan have become. They've become dead weight. And so Charles has to eliminate it. They are a problem that Charles needs to deal with effectively, swiftly, and deny them oxygen to continue to build their brand off the back of manipulating people, because that's what Harry and Meghan have done in terms of manipulating, especially Americans, I hate to say, who don't really understand how the monarchy works, and disrespecting the UK's legacy, its traditions, Charles as the king, all these sorts of things. Charles needs to eliminate it now. Eliminate it before it gets any worse, because at this point, it's only going to get worse. Well guys, let me know what you think about this video, and I'll also try to do as much, because obviously the news is covering the major stories and aspects of this, but I like to kind of speculate on things. And honestly, my video that came out about Meghan being told no, she can't go to Balmoral, before the mainstream media started talking about it, it was lovely. And I didn't have any insight knowledge on that. It was just instinct and kind of understanding, again, how Meghan has damaged the royal family in a way that I don't think a lot of people, even in the American media, totally understand. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all my new subscribers. This is so exciting to see the channel grow. And obviously, we want to keep remembering Queen Elizabeth. She was such an icon and such a foundational power in the monarchy, but the best way to kind of remember her and to keep going forward is to protect the institution as it is right now under Charles and under William. So guys, again, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Bye.